So you probably didn't know this, but this program is mostly funded by viewers like you, listeners like you who sign up for the membership program on our website. We do an extra show every day for our members. I would love for you to join the membership ranks, and you can do so at joinpacman.com. I want to talk about comedian and actor Russell Brand in this segment. Now, I'm not going to do the lazy, he's an anti-vaccine nut sort of thing that's been floating around. There have been some articles written that straight up say Russell Brand is anti-vax. I find it lazy, quite frankly. There is a Daily Beast article called "Comedian Russell Brand Has Become a Powerful Voice for Anti-Vaxxers," which comes maybe a little closer to the reality of what's going on. And the way we're going to look at some clips, we're going to look at a lot of different things. The way that I characterize this is that Russell Brand is definitely dancing around on the topic of vaccination. He's asking questions and making suggestions, all in ways that encourage vaccine hesitancy or skepticism without like really explicitly taking an anti-vaccine position. Now, one can make the argument that doing it the way he's doing it might be more pernicious than straight up just doing anti-vax propaganda. I don't know what his intentions are, and we'll talk about that at the end. We'll look at the material first, but what's clear is that whatever he's been doing, it has worked well to build an audience, and in particular, around these sort of contrarian ideas, as we might call them. And that may play a role in how he's choosing to frame issues. Maybe he's being encouraged to do this stuff because it's doing well. I don't know. Let's start with the evolution, and we're going to hit kind of a few different points and go from there. Here is Russell Brand, many times talking about how he is neutral about everything and just sort of look into everything. He has no opinion or advice for you about COVID or vaccines or treatments. He's neutral. Let's take a listen.
I am Switzerland when it comes to this subject. No view at all. I am merely a floating series of molecules, spores in space that through the spike protein could attach to something. Now I'm completely neutral. You can do your own research into the impact of coronavirus. And I would suggest that you look beyond the mainstream media into the impact of vaccines and the efficacy of vaccines and make your own decisions.
Okay.
I have no opinion.
None.
I'm not offering any advice or suggestions or even opinions around the treatment of COVID, just measuring and judging the conversation that takes place around it.
Okay. So maybe it's good to be neutral sometimes, I guess, but the really important takeaway here is neutrality is not objectivity. Neutrality and objectivity are two different things. If I say I'm neutral between water being necessary for human life or water being the biggest scam on earth that humans don't really need to live, I'm staking out a position of neutrality, but there's nothing objective about it. I'm just completely wrong. I'm not adhering to the facts in my neutrality. I'm neutral, but I'm completely wrong. So that's one reason to always be skeptical about loudly professed neutrality, because neutrality and objectivity are two different things. So let's now look at Russell Brand's first statement that I could find about COVID. This was back in March of 2020, March 13th of 2020, I believe. This was just a few days after Trump made the big speech about we're closing this, we're closing that, and there's a virus. And it's already sort of like a little bit woo-woo and starting to, this is the type of stuff that lends itself to people looking to you to justify their own skepticism and disbelief, even about things you're not directly talking about. Take a look.
My personal take on it is it's a reminder that reality lies below the surface. The deepest realities cannot be seen. You know, microbiology can at any point alter the game. And that's about what's happening even beneath that, held in fields of invisible energy. So I suppose,
So it's,
wash your hands,
yeah.
be sensible, but significantly remember how often we live in concepts and constructs that are not real and are not beneficial.
So, I guess wash your hands, but at the same time, we can't really see a lot of this stuff. And I don't know, it's starting to get a little bit squishy, okay? Then we cut to this year where it's really ramped up. As his follower base has grown, this type of stuff has ramped up. This is now, we're going from last March 13 to this September 13, just under a month ago. Russell Brand says the problem of COVID is small compared to that of the vaccine mandates. So now we're really getting into some meaty stuff for the anti-vax crowd, whatever Russell's view is of vaccines per se.
The problem of coronavirus is small compared to the problem of the framework that we are discovering holds it. A framework of disdain, contempt, and conflict. As long as we forget fundamental basic values, kindness, open communication, tolerance, if we forget those things, there is no society worth saving, no matter what you believe.
Now, this is one of those things where kindness, okay, sure. But the problem of COVID is still a big problem. And this idea of this minimizing, again, whatever his views are, it feeds into the people who want to say we don't need the vaccine or the mandates are definitely bad or whatever. Now, here's a little bit of a break into something that also is part of this. Russell spoke with Tim Pool. Tim Pool is this guy. We've interviewed him before. He said he used to be on the left, or he sort of still claims to be. 90% of his content is anti-democratic. I've talked to him about it. It should not come as a shock to many of you that he said he voted for Trump in 2020. So this is another one of these, I'm on the left. I'm kind of an enlightened centrist. Really, it just seems like at least you're mostly doing content that criticizes the left and you're voting for Trump. Okay. So Russell brings on Tim Pool and they do this shtick about we're very close to civil war, very, very close to civil war. And this is a trope now. But the left is ripping us apart. They're pushing us to the brink of civil war.
You used to say more frequently, at least as far as I'm aware, that you felt that, I guess in the final days of Trump, that America was on the brink of some kind of civil war.
I still do.
Do you?
Yeah, but there's been polling data that I think may, evolve that opinion. Notably, there was YouGov data that show, I think it was YouGov, that there's 5 regions in the United States. There's the northeastern, there's the southern, there's the heartland, there's the west and the mountain regions. Mm-hmm. And in each region, there was a large plurality of people who wanted to secede from the Union and form their own regional governments, essentially. If you normalize for population by each state, I did the math, you end up with 37.2% of the U.S. population wanting the country to break apart.
Okay. Now, I don't exactly know the normalization he's referring to. I know what normalization means. I remember we talked about that poll. I don't exactly know. I don't know if he means, maybe he doesn't even mean normalization. He just says it's extrapolated. I think maybe Tim doesn't know the difference between extrapolating and normalizing. What he's not mentioning is that those disproportionately wanting to secede are Southern Republicans. And this entire Civil War narrative that he and some others have been pushing, sometimes explicitly, sometimes implicitly, will grant that, it's not always explicit, is that the left's intolerance or unwillingness to do whatever is what's pushing us to the brink of civil war. The reality is that, the closest thing that we got to a civil war starting that I can recall in the last many years was the January 6th insurrection. It was exclusively Trumpists who did it. And even if you look at secession and civil war are two different things. It's disproportionately Southern Republicans who want to do it. And this is the type of stuff that Russell platforms. I would say it's not responsible platforming in that he's not really ready to rebut the substance of what's being said. Okay. Then Russell Brand shares a tweet, which seems to be telling people how to get around COVID safety measures during his comedy tour. Okay. This is called the 33 Tour. Russell Brand tweeted this, and it's 33 Tour info. And it says, there are some misunderstandings around the venue requirements for the 33 Tour. This should address the concerns we've seen expressed. No venue requires you to be double vaccinated. So that's sort of like, you can just go and get one and not the second, and you're going to be able to get in. Most venues do not ask for any certification. Again, saying it's kind of the honor system at a lot of places. You can probably go without being vaccinated. Some require proof of a negative test. And then saying if you have a ticket that requires you to have a test and you don't want one, we'll move your ticket to another venue. It might require travel. So again, it's all kind of slippery. Like no one of these things is that egregious, but it's all fomenting a particular line of thought from the people that follow him. Okay, so now we'll go to a more recent clip. In this clip, Russell Brand suggests looking beyond the mainstream media for information about vaccines. And what's really slippery and squishy about this one is, I'm the first to agree, you can't just trust corporate media for everything. But the implication here is that there's this whole other hidden truth that's not being presented in the corporate media about vaccines. And if you're aware that the general narrative, which is accurate, is, well, the vaccines are quite safe and quite effective. If you're being told there's some other completely different narrative, without him telling you anything anti-vax per se, you start to think, wow, what am I not being told? Let's take a listen.
Do your own research into the impact of coronavirus, and I would suggest that you look beyond the mainstream media into the impact of vaccines and the efficacy of vaccines and make your own decisions. I have no opinion.
Right. He still has no opinion. But again, it's this idea that you may not be getting told all the things you should be getting told, and you've got to look for it. Here is Russell Brand then on vaccine passports, which he equates to totalitarianism.
It's very interesting how this particular issue is being treated with a very specific and, one might argue, totalitarian mindset, where elsewhere our cultures are built on principles of individualism. Well, you're an individual, you're responsible for your own life, you're responsible if you're in prison or if you can't make a go of life yourself, that's your fault, that's your responsibility. So it's being regarded uniquely. And I suppose to someone like me that's skeptical and sometimes downright cynical about government, the agenda of governments, the relationships of government with big business, something like this makes me concerned about the direction we're heading.
So again, it's just vaguely alluding to the idea of freedom. Freedom is not anybody requiring a vaccine for sure. That's absolutely not it. And then this is just where it starts to get really weird. Russell says he saw a dead fish in the river, and that seems like a bad omen from the standpoint of totalitarian vaccine passports.
Whatever your views on the pandemic, where it came from, how it came to be here, what the impact of it is on a sort of individual, social and cultural level, the fact is that now the response to it does align with some people's opinions about government agenda, i.e. further control, further invasion, further regulation of your life. The very idea that you might not be able to attend a public event without showing a passport, that concerns me. Other people might say, well, we've all got national insurance numbers and stuff like that. I don't know, man. The other day I was on the River Wye and I saw dead fish in that river. When you see things that feel like an indication of something foreboding, it's, I think, foolish not to respond to it.
So that's strange. Okay, that now it starts to get really strange. And then just to give you kind of like just a final tour through this, here is Russell saying Russiagate, quote, Russiagate was cooked up by the Clintons, which is becoming very popular among the right.
The world moves so fast, there's almost no time for history. It seems like years ago that we were hearing that Trump was colluding with Russia, that he wouldn't have won the election without Russia, that his whole presidency was a kind of Putin plot. Well, there's now serious evidence that it was the Clinton campaign and Hillary Clinton acolytes that were directly involved in the generation of what has proven to be a conspiracy. Untrue. Think about how much media you watched.
So this is just a, straight up right-wing talking point. And then lastly, here he says vaccine fact checkers may not be trustworthy.
You have to be open-minded and open-eyed about the reality of the information you're being presented. Elsewhere, in another one of our videos, we talk about the sort of appetite for apartheid, like people who have not been vaccinated should be pushed this way. I don't have a strong opinion about what you should do with your life. You should be free. I should be free. We should be free to talk. We should be free to disagree. What I have concerns about are the legislation and regulation around the way that information is communicated, information is censored, because I want to feel like I can trust people. I want to feel like I can trust the media. I want to feel like I can trust the government. I don't enjoy sitting here actually, I do enjoy sitting here doing this. But I feel that the systems themselves are so dependent on their own sort of corrupt, spiraling interrelationship that it's not possible for it to operate freely. I don't even think there's anyone evil at Facebook or at CDC or whatever. I just think there's just a big sort of tidal rolling of profiteering that's so sort of embedded that people can't see that it's happening. It's bigger than them. That's what a system is. A system is like we're all a set of nodes operating in a broader trajectory, a broader telos, and none of us can sort of step outside and go, hang on, what's going on? Is this the best way to do things? And if you can't see a situation like a fact checker being funded by people whose facts it's checking, it is quite hard, then you're not open-minded enough.
Yeah.
And I know
So anyway, even the fact checkers maybe cannot be trusted. Okay. So what's the bottom line here? The difficulty here is that this is not like straight up anti-vax, and calling Russell Brand anti-vax is lazy. It's not, it doesn't really encompass it. There's no real single anti-vaccine clip. He's dancing. He's encouraging anti-vax people to become more anti-vax. Not saying he's doing it on purpose, but he is. The videos he pumps out all have the same sort of like tinge, which we're going to look at. Problems with the vaccine, studies against the vaccine, famous proponent of the vaccine who you can't trust. And he hints one way while claiming to be neutral, but clearly he's not objective. I mean, just we'll look at some of his clip titles here. The Wuhan lab leak debate just got even. Something else. Wait, hold on. Let's look at which are the vaccine related ones. How big pharma CEOs plan to profit from keeping you, maybe it's sick. Can we really trust vaccine fact checkers? Thought Biden couldn't sink any lower. Think again. Vaccine apartheid. Don Lemon's COVID bombshell. Good science or irresponsible? This is why you can't trust big pharma. Shocking Wuhan evidence, etc. It's vaccine mandates, an assault on your bodily whatever. It's actually quite similar to the Jimmy Dore idea. It's very similar to what Jimmy Dore does. Fauci has no answer. Study vaccines being administered incorrectly. Vax side effects reported. Sudden hearing loss. Vaccines cause hurricanes. Biden says vaccine causes hurricanes, which is just a muddle. It's just, that's kind of the Biden dementia story. COVID surge among vaccinated. It's the exact same type of idea. A couple different things could be happening. One, some individuals are just taking their distrust of the pharmaceutical industry, which we should all have to some degree, and broadly applying it to COVID and to the vaccine in a way that maybe is well intended, but is very much misguided. For others, this is a straight up grift. I don't know which one it is for Russell Brand. I genuinely don't know which category I put him in. Taking pharmaceutical skepticism too far, grift, delusional, I don't know. But the evolution of Russell Brand is giving significant comfort, so to speak, and encouragement to those already skeptical of just going out and getting vaccinated. Let me know what you think it is that's going on with Russell Brand.